Hoyo refuses to drop the upcoming 4 stars on the banner, so we're going with this video because it's going to be easy to record and edit. Even though you probably already decided who you're pulling for next patch, here's a 5.3 pull guide. Hello. I joke around that it's easy, but it's also kind of something that I did want to talk about because 5.3 is a very interesting patch from a saving perspective. What we're set up with is 2 5 stars, Mavuika and Citlali, who both offer not necessarily something new, but a combination of older things with the attributes tweaked in different ways. And then we have the asterisk 4 stars, Pyro Traveler and Lanyan, who are sort of 4-star counterparts of these 2 5 stars. They obviously don't offer what the 5 stars offer in total because they're 4 stars, but both of them are going to be available for free and powerful enough that I think if you're happy with these 2 characters, you can very much skip Mavuika and Citlali. I'm gonna shut up and actually start talking about what I said I was going to talk about. First off, the center of attention of the patch is obviously Mavuika, the Archon. I have said some mean things in the past about her, and I would like to revoke a few of those things. Some of them I would like to double down on though, so she's not totally exempt. Mavuika is a unit who, her best use case is using her as just another pyro on-fielder, which I think is a little bit sad, but units aren't only defined by their best optimal teams, and Mavuika's kit is sort of defined by its flexibility. It's best at on-fielding, but she can also do some decent supportive stuff and quick swapping stuff. If you want to see a full explanation of her kit, you can check it out in this other video, but it is still true that her ability to successfully do these other things is reliant on having other Natlan characters in your team, and in particular, Xilonen. She wasn't even someone I thought about in that other video, but how she works is whenever she caps out her skill and triggers her res shred, she drains all 90 of her Night Soul points. While Mavuika is reliant on other Natlan units to make good use of her burst, she's reliant on Xilonen specifically if she wants to max it out. So anyways, what about this other stuff that she can do? Her supportive utilities are mostly limited to the fact that she has off-field pyro and she can hold the Scroll of Cinder City set. She has a little bit of damage bonus in her passive, but again, that is reliant on other Natlan units being in your party. At that point, maybe just make them hold Scroll of Cinder City so that she can hold Obsidian Codex. Her big upside as a DPS is that a large portion of her damage is packed into the initial hit of her burst. That one massive multiplier that also gets boosted further by how much fighting spirit she's generated, that is the majority of her damage in a rotation, which means that she can be a very compelling quick swap DPS who does a big hit and then makes room for someone else to come on field and deal their damage. She's a flexible unit herself and she can do a lot of different things, but her teams are arguably less flexible. Next up we have Citlali, who I haven't talked about her kit very much, so I'm gonna go over the basics of it here. Skill summons a shield and also a damage over time effect that persists off field. The shield is fine. It's not particularly strong. It's sort of on the weak side. She's sort of like Baiju in the way that she does have a shield and that does provide an amount of defensive utility, but that's clearly not what her kit is focused on. She is again going to be able to hold Scroll of Cinder City, which that's massive, and she also has a res shred for specifically Pyro and Hydro, no cryo, when you trigger melts or freezes on nearby enemies. And the weird thing about her is that she's an elemental mastery scaler. Her shield scales on it, and she also gets some talent damage with it with her ascension passive. So she is going to be a sort of combination DPS support and defensive unit. She is sort of like, interestingly enough, she's like a Zhongli with his attributes shifted around. Citlali is release Zhongli, or how they wanted release Zhongli to be played. A shielder who, instead of just having a big stupid shield, have a few decent buffs and also deal significant damage off field. So anyways, we have those big 2 out of the way. Let's move on to Pyro Traveler and Lanyan, because these are 2 very significant characters, and they're two free characters. Most of what I have to say about Pyro Traveler is, if you only want Mavuika for her supportive utility, and you think you can handle a little clunkiness in your characters, you're totally fine skipping her. From a supportive perspective, numerically they're going to be very, very similar because you get free constellations on Traveler. Pyro Traveler has both a tap and a hold skill, but they apply Pyro off-field in different ways instead. The tap is sort of like Xinyan's shield, and the hold version is kind of like Raiden E. But the thing about hold version, which is the better version because it gives you some range, is that based on footage and also what some content creators I'm following have said, there's pretty significant end lag to the hold version of Pyro Traveler's skill, which I'm going to demonstrate with Kole here. She has a similar thing. With Xingqiu's skill, we can see it has a pretty decently long animation to it, where he does this, fancy backflip. But after your initial 2 hits, you can just cancel out of it midair. I should go on flatter ground to record this. Kole's skill, aside from being awkward as hell, she does this little flourish animation. And I'm gonna be mashing space here. You can't cancel out of it until after the spin. From what I've seen and heard, Pyro Traveler is going to have a very similar thing with their hold skill, which in that case, Mavuika's benefit over them is not only dealing more damage, but being a little more comfortable to play. But everyone gets Pyro Traveler for free at the end of the Archon quest, so my advice, play around with them for maybe a week, see if you can get away with it, and then if you don't like how they play, go for Mavuika. Lanyan, we're not so lucky because I believe Lantern Rite is second half, so Citlali will be gone by the time she comes around. But Lanyan, it is a bit of a less comparable situation. While they're not the same elephant, they are both shielders with very significant offensive utility, which is kind of new to Genshin. Because not only is Lanyan going to be able to hold VV like every other Animo unit is, because she's a Catalyst unit, she's going to be able to hold TTDS. 40% res shred and 48% attack is not insignificant. She might also give some further buffs in her constellations, I'm not sure. They might just make her shield stronger. That on top of a shield that can change based on whatever element you swirled is going to be pretty strong, and I think honestly comparable to Citlali. Again, with the 4-star, you will be losing out on personal damage, but that's how it usually is. So those are all the new characters taken care of. But there's actually one more old character coming back that I would like to mention. Arlecchino, because not only is she rerunning, but she's pretty relevant to whether you actually want to pull for Mavuika. While Mavuika does have a lot more utility, at the end of the day, they have the same strength, their ability to do a lot of front-loaded damage on field. The main difference is that Mavuika has more variety in playstyles, and Arlecchino has more variety in teams. So, if you're somehow lacking a pyro carry at this point, this patch has 2 very compelling options whose strengths don't exactly overlap, but they do enough to where you only really need one of them. And also Chlorand is there, I guess.